The Birmingham Civil Rights Institute is charged with the idea of taking the lessons from the past and transferring them to our future.
As stewards of history in the Birmingham movement, the BCRI houses incredible collections that show and document where the community has come from and how the Birmingham movement both came to be and was so successful.
Civil rights and equality challenge today just as they were many decades ago. We are here to enlighten each generation about civil and human rights by exploring our common past, working together in the present to build a better future.
The peaceful protest. They created what we're doing today. They created everything that their model of protest and activism is what we young people look at in order for ours to be successful.
Through many educational offerings, we teach the idea that the changes in Birmingham, Alabama were not just because of Reverend Dr. Martin Luther King and Reverend Fred Shuttlesworth and Reverend Ralph Abernathy. A lot of these changes took place because of the youth in this city. We have BCAP, which is the Birmingham Cultural Alliance Project, where we visit middle school students and we take them through this history and through this narrative so that they can prepare to understand their role in society. Through our Legacy Youth Leadership Program, we bring high school students from all over the Jefferson County area here to study this narrative and to serve as docents and ambassadors to the Civil Rights Institute.
Hello, my name is Megan Millsap. Hi, my name is Mackenzie Millsap, and we are part of the Legacy Leadership Program at the Birmingham Civil Rights Institute.
To researchers and local students, from middle, high, and university students, they're able to come in and see where we've been so that they can go and be better stewards of Birmingham and our present and then our future.
Knowing that Birmingham has so much to and is part of the civil rights movement is going to be very important.
So welcome home, everybody. Happy Jubilee Day. Happy Jubilee Day.
Over the last 29 years, BCRI has been an international leader in the space of civil and human rights. 2020 has brought us a multitude of challenges, but also in that same breath, so many opportunities. The ways in which we've been able to implement technology, but also be innovative, has allowed us to be able to get to this point to where we are today.
It has me excited and it has me ready to see what's next and do something tomorrow. I'm ready. I'm ready for what's next.
Welcome to the Birmingham Jewish Federation and the Jewish Community Relations Council. We're thrilled to have you here today.
I can't believe I've never actually been in the building before.
Well, you know, and I'm looking forward to seeing your building.
Yes.
I have not been in your building either, but we both kind of been, I'm new and you were away for a while,
Yes,
right?
for sure.
So what were you doing before you were
Oh my gosh! Before I came over to the
Yes.
institute, I have a social impact firm called Think Rubik's, and we specialize in engagement strategy, storytelling, narrative, data collection, all those kinds of things across the country.
All right.
So we have an office in DC, which is where I've been for quite a long time before I moved back here. And then I'm also the founder of Woke Vote, which is a national nonprofit that organizes Black and Brown voters around electoral politics and social justice issues.
Well,
Yeah.
big props to you, my friend.
Thank you. Thank you.
So I guess,
And welcome.
Thank you. Thank you. I got here 5 days before COVID started.
And that's crazy to me.
I think that God kind of put you where you need to be.
For sure.
And at the time it needs to happen.
For
I
sure.
kind of feel like that's how this conversation kind of got started too.
We both were like, so we're here.
Right, here we are. And it's time for us to have a chat. Yeah. I have to admit to you, the not being from Birmingham, I had no context until I got down here. The deep history that the Blacks and the Jews had together during the civil rights era and pre. I had only known what the current relationship was and how you and I had made a commitment to each other to try to grow it. So I have been doing my homework. Ooh. And I'm excited to see what was at with that BCRI. But I'm excited for you to be here today because in this building, although probably walls moved and carpet changed, the Jewish Community Relations Council was founded in 1962.
Okay.
And the reason that it was founded was to give Jews a unified voice during the civil rights movement so we could help our Black brothers and sisters in Birmingham. And so this is the birthplace of Birmingham's Jewish civil rights era. That's here. Powerful. And I have these pictures on my wall.
Yeah, I love them.
And
I love them.
Ruth Bader Ginsburg, who is a personal hero of mine, but I also keep Martin Luther King up there. But that wasn't an accident, but it was kind of like a happy medium. Like when I started learning what was going on here and his relationship with Rabbi Grafman and everything that went on. And so I'm just thrilled that you're here. I'm thrilled we're going to be doing a talk together.
Yeah, I think that one of the beautiful things about our relationship and even the relationships that you're uncovering is the work of uncovering, right? We exist to make sure that not only our communities that we serve directly, but the external communities, that they understand the interconnectedness, the interdependence, and the fact that there's a lot to learn from what happened, but there's a lot to, to be excited about what can happen in the future and how we shape moving forward. So I think, it's the time that we're in the country. This is the perfect time for us to be doing this, right? Because we need each other now more than ever.
It's so, yes, we do.
We really do.
Yes. Yeah. It's so interesting that you talk about uncovering.
Yeah.
When doing some of my research, I had been aware of the name Ullman here in Birmingham.
Yeah.
I was not aware that he was Jewish.
Yeah.
I had no idea that Samuel Ullman was Jewish. I had no idea the relationship that he had in getting Blacks educated at the turn of the century. And that was, again, one of these happy discoveries.
Yes.
Because you hear a lot about the civil rights era and you hear a lot about, the local heroes of that era, but you don't really hear, or I haven't heard pre-civil rights what was going on. And this has been a really fun journey for me to uncover.
Yeah. There was a space that we were in during the 50s, 40s, 50s, and 60s that we're not in right now.
Right.
And let's prayerfully hope that we never go back to that point. That both of our communities helped to shepherd us out of those spaces through hard work, collaboration, putting their bodies on the line, their resources on the line, those kinds of things. What I'm saying is that, there are still the issues of our day.
Yes.
That we, have unique opportunities and unique strategies. And again, I believe our community is at the forefront of pushing this region and this country forward. And so I think that's the exciting part of what you and I can do, is that we can actually shape some things.
I'm excited about it because I think that maybe the flame has gone a little dim between the two communities, and we're obviously very bright. So no one knows what tomorrow is going to hold, but we also know that sitting around talking and not doing isn't worth anything.
That's absolutely.
And so may this be the first step of doing together.
The first step of doing together. I love that.
I really wanted to bring you to the Annie Miles Jewish Day School. This is a very special place for us in our community. I think I was talking with you earlier. I was telling you about a meme that I had seen today where it said that Black and brown children have to be taught about racism in order to survive, and white children have to be taught about racism not to be a racist. And the reason why I say that here, first of all, I think it's powerful words to think about. But we are very proud of the civil rights curriculum that our upper school kids go through, and learning about the history here in Birmingham, and then of course going down to Selma. And it's served as a national model where other day schools will come to the area and go with our children on these civil rights walks and to learn all about it. But I think that we both can agree that starting early is the only way to eradicate racism and prejudice. And while I know that our talks are fun and our discussions are going to be good, being in a school and just being able to show you that, we take it very seriously. And I think that I'm very proud of the work we're doing here.
You should be.
And I wanted you to see it and all.
I really applaud you all for continuing this mission. I love it in here. It's so beautiful.
I know. It's
my first time. I feel like I would come in here and learn and sit down and just read. And
I want to tell you a real quick story while we're standing here. As part of Jewish Federation, we have a governing body, Jewish Federations in North America, and there's a Black rabbi. His name is Rabbi Isaiah Rothstein. His cousin was Carol Robertson.
Wow.
And his mother was descended from slaves of Sawyerville. And I was able to bring him through the day school, and we went down to the 16th Street Church, and it is powerful, but it's also interesting. I don't know many Jews of color, and to get a perspective of someone who is now a Chabad rabbi who is descended from slaves in Alabama, who is tied to the 16th Street bombing. And that's again what I think we're here to teach our children, that it isn't just the color of your skin. You don't know what you don't know.
That's right.
And things that may impact them now have already been settled in the past. And so I share that with you because we're standing here in this house of education, not a house of worship. And there's so much more educating that needs to be done, and I'm real happy to be doing it with you.
I love that story. It is always an honor to bring people into the Institute. I love the fact that we don't call ourselves a museum, that our founders thought, this isn't a museum. It isn't a place where people just come and observe what happened, right? They really wanted a space where people come, absolutely be immersed in what happened, but they have steps to move forward. And things have a way to think about what are the ways we can change material conditions for our communities moving forward. So the Institute really is a living, breathing experiment.
So I'm really excited to see, being not from Birmingham, I've only admired this from a distance, and during COVID wasn't able to come in, but yay for today.
I know. The Institute was built in 1992. Okay. It was commissioned by the first Black mayor, Mayor Richard Arrington. Okay. They really felt, what's wonderful about the Institute is that it was a group of diverse individuals who came together to do it. So you had Odessa Wofolk, who took the lead on the project, but you also had Bob Corley and other members of the community who came together. And the thought was they didn't want to lose the unique history that was Birmingham specific as it relates to the civil rights movement, right? Because the civil rights movement was happening all over the country and really got the attention of the world. But there were some unique things and unique leaders from Birmingham specifically that the mayor thought we can't lose this rich legacy that we have. But there was conflict in the community around whether or not a space like this was actually needed or necessary, because while the 16th Street Baptist Church was already there in St. Paul and some of the other iconic spaces, or the 4th Avenue Business District that we sit in the A.G. Gaston Hotel was crumbling, but it was it's still there. Right. This wasn't considered yet the civil rights district as it is now. Okay. And so now we're sitting in what is considered the civil rights district, and it includes the Civil Rights Institute, where we're building the A.G. Gaston Hotel, the 16th Street Baptist Church, Kelly Ingram Park. If you go down the 4th Avenue Business District, and it's also now a Smithsonian affiliate, right? And it's also been deemed a national landmark by up under the Obama administration. So now we have, from that sort of first idea that they had in 1988, actually, here we are in 2021 seeing not just that idea having come all the way alive, but seeing how it's moving and how it's generating moving forward.
I think it's so amazing that you found a group of individuals that wanted to own the history, right? You know, I come from born and bred in Omaha, where they have erased all traces of redlining, right? And so it never really existed. You know, spent my formative years in Chicago, where you can see segregation still alive and well. And here, you're taking something that is such a touchy subject and making it so accessible. And I really am so excited for you. What you now in this position and what's going to be, what has been in the past and what will be in the future. I will say I have seen pictures of the donor wall, and I am proud to say that there are many in the Jewish community that contributed
from the very beginning.
And I think that just goes to show what we've been saying all along, that the relationship, it's collective, and it just needs to be dusted off a little bit.
Just a little bit, remind people who we are,
right?
What we've done together,
exactly,
and how we can move forward.
You and I are both secular leaders. And for many, many years, this was handled by the religious communities. And it excites me that we both have been given the opportunity as secular leaders to kind of approach this in a new way for the future. So thank you for having me. I really appreciate it.
They're not going to know what to do with us, but it's okay.
Shine bright.
So, I think one of the things that's important when we're in here is that we're not, trying to cover up the brutality and what happened during that time, right? In fact, embracing it by acknowledging that it happened is critical, because to not do that would be erasure. Our conversation and our continued conversations is what's going to help us to not live in a space where we don't feel like we can have those conversations and talk about those tragedies, but also from that something grew, right? We were able to do something. So,
standing here looking at that tank, they say that people learn from history, but I don't know that anyone did. I mean, this is just 20 years, not even after the Holocaust, where they were using tanks and railroad cars to deport Jews and gassing them in cold water. And as Americans, you would think that we can do better.
To see this was in the 1960s, but also to tell you that last year in 2020 in Minneapolis, when I went to go and protest what was going on for George Floyd, they brought the tanks out on us then. This was last year. And gas. And I was gassed. 2020.
In America.
In America. Trying to advocate for a more just system. Trying to say this was a person who didn't have to die. And so you're right. You would imagine that we would be past some of the same tactics. But one thing I know about hate, it doesn't have a color.
No.
It doesn't have a geography. Hate is something that is so unique to itself that the only thing that can drive that out, as Martin Luther King said, is love. And so I think what we're here to do is to show what love looks like in action. Right. And that's the work you're doing, the work that I do. And so I'm excited for us to continue.
Me too. And thank you for showing this to me. This is extremely powerful.
Yes. Thank you. I love this processional gallery because it talks about, and it's images of just all kinds of different people, and the fact that we were rebuilding together. We were figuring it out together. And that's what we're going to be doing. I think, I am not, I like to tell people all the time, I'm a realist, right? I am a realist. And in that, I just think that work has to happen in order to get to a certain place, right? Effort, real, true commitment. And so I want to just tell you that I'm committed to the work that we're doing together. I'm ready to roll up my sleeves. The effort will be matched, and I will be sure that whatever we can do here at the Birmingham Civil Rights Institute as a partner in what John Lewis would call good trouble, that we're willing to do it. So, yeah.
That we are the generation to push us forward and get this done.
We are absolutely the ones that we have been waiting for. And what I think we should celebrate is that last year and in recent years, it hasn't just been one community out in the streets.
Right.
It hasn't just been one group of people calling for change. I can honestly say that in every city I was in last year, It was a diverse group of people, young folks specifically, but absolutely intergenerational, who were out there calling for the idea of justice. And I think that is the part that gave my heart hope, is that it wasn't just myself as a Black woman from Birmingham. I met people from all over, literally all over the world, who came to Minneapolis, who went to Louisville, who went to Georgia for Ahmaud Arbery, who went to New York, who were saying, enough really is enough. We are the beneficiary babies of both a system that taught us how to fight, and then also we benefit from the idea that we're so much more connected now because of internet, because of all those things. We are able to, we don't have to wait, as long as some of those lessons, it took them long to learn some of those lessons, but we can benefit from each other's success and from each other's struggle and see that in real time. And so I think we're gonna do this together. I think we're gonna see it.
I'm looking forward to sitting down with you.
Yes. Well.
Hug.
Yes.
All right, that was a good, strong one. I'm gonna give another one. Good evening. All right, fantastic. My name is Isaac Cooper. I'm the chairman of the board of directors of this beautiful building, the Birmingham Civil Rights Institute. Before I move forward, I do want to highlight two of our leaders here today that I see, John Saxon and Miss Angela McKenzie, two of our board members. Let's give them a round of applause. Yes, and a strong round of applause because they handle our money. That's finance and development. So very important roles there. Now, was that an amazing video? That was a great video. Let's give the production team, that was great. That was great. It was my first time seeing the video, and there was a few themes that I pulled away, right? The first theme was resilience. And we know that we are here today because Birmingham represents that, right? The second theme was relationship. There's a number of individuals in this room today because of this beautiful young lady in the yellow, Miss Odessa Woolfolk, right? And I believe it yields the importance of a relationship and how that there is no time limit to a relationship. And we are here today to be able to stand on those relationships to continue the vision that's been set out for both organizations with the shared faith that we've established. So my role this evening is to introduce our moderator, Ms. Sherri Jackson. I'm gonna hold my third theme once I finish her introduction. So Ms. Sherri Jackson is a two-time Emmy Award-winning news anchor and a veteran journalist who has spent 2 decades telling the stories of the people of Central Alabama at CBS 42 News. She's done great work as a journalist, reporting on children and social media so families can be smart about the devices that they're utilizing. And as well informing parents about sexual predators, fighting the war on cancer with information, and shining a spotlight on overdue honors for those who've given their all to make the community what it is today. She's been named Best News Anchor in Alabama 5 times. A round of applause there. That's exactly right. That's home team. 5 times by the Alabama Broadcasters Association. And Sherri continues to excel as a journalist and as weekday anchor for CBS 42. And if you are looking to connect with her, it is at 5 p.m., 6 p.m., and at 10 o'clock. And it brings me to our third theme, in which we all need and which we all are, which is an advocate. And so when we think about the documentation of the progress and the work that we are currently doing, it is very critical that it is documented in a way that reflects the truth. And so Sherri has been an advocate, and so I'm super excited to introduce our moderator, Sherri Jackson.
Thank you, Isaac. I also do the 4 o'clock news. I want to say good evening to all of you, and I am delighted to be here and have this opportunity, of course, for what we hope will be a restorative conversation between Birmingham's Black and Jewish communities. And prayerfully, I hope it's an opportunity that allows our community to rededicate itself to a spirit of unity that has historically existed between these groups. And more than that, though, what I hope we leave with, and certainly for those who are watching online, I hope we leave by setting an example for others to have courageous conversations, move beyond those places of being stuck in inaction, and that doesn't benefit our communities or our society as a whole. That's something that takes courage. And so that's what excites me about being here today. You just met in the video two very courageous people who we will be having that dialogue with in the video, and I'll have them come out. The president and CEO of the Birmingham Civil Rights Institute, Ms. DeJuana Thompson, and as she takes her place, also Danny Cohn, the CEO of the Birmingham Jewish Federation. They told you a little bit about themselves in the video, but we welcome them both. Tonight, determining future collaborations, examining the potential accomplishments that can benefit both communities. We're gonna get to that, but first, that's a tease. That's what we do in television. Have you hanging on for something, but those are the high notes we wanna leave with. First, timing is everything. Right? And so for these two new leaders of these two historic organizations in our city to be in this place in the community, to come at the same time, stands out. It stands out to me, but in this questioning, the way I've decided to do this is to ask a question and have you both respond. So I hope that's okay. Because when I say that stands out to me, certainly it stood out to both of you, and that's kind of why we are here. So let me ask what each of you would like to see in this unique moment that we find ourselves in here in Birmingham.
You're a guest, Danny, so I'm gonna let you go first.
I think he's blushing.
No, that never happens.
No, it never happens. What would I like to see here in this unique moment?
Yes.
Continued collaboration and dialogue.
Yeah.
I alluded to it in the video. I believe the relationship needed to be dusted off. You have two brand new leaders here who are not affected by any of the sins of our fathers or our past, and that are committed to working with each other. And personally, I got a new friend out of it, so that was great.
Yes.
And but for our communities, it's time for us to come back together and figure out what it is that we agree on, and I think we can do that here tonight. I think that that's an important part.
Yeah, I think one of the when I started this opportunity, I sat down with the Miss Odessas of the world and many others who started this facility and asked them what their mission was. Why did you create a space like the BCRI? And it has always been that they wanted to be able to be a place where people could have these kinds of conversations, that they could use, in sacred space and in sacred understanding, use that as a way to move forward, to address whatever the critical issues are of the day. And so when we found we had a unique opportunity, I think we both wanted to lean into that because we want to be transformative. And that's what it is at the end of the day. We want our leadership in the work that we do on behalf of these institutions to transform the communities that we serve and each other's communities.
Absolutely.
And so this is the first step of that.
Which involves everybody in this room and certainly taking that cue from leadership. You mentioned in the video a history for this city of Black and Jewish Americans working together, fighting oppression of the marginalization of communities of color. And I wonder for both of you, what you would identify today as a common goal in addressing specifically those issues of oppression and marginalization of these very same groups.
Yeah. You want me to start? That's only fair. So a couple of things. I think that just as a person of faith in general, I used to tell people all the time, it's really hard to talk to someone about faith when they're hungry. So if they have not ate a meal in 30 days and you're talking about coming to church or going to the synagogue or going to the mosque, that disconnection already is going to put you in a place where it doesn't seem as if you understand the immediate or the things that are going on with that community. And so what I think we have a unique opportunity to do is to address some of the social and some of the critical needs of our communities, whether that is food justice, whether that is education, whether that is appropriate housing, what those are the things that are keeping people from being able to have the harder conversations sometimes around justice, because they're hungry, they're cold, they need better access to resources. And so those are things that our values and our charter values align on. And we've been talking about, looking at, so here's why we exist, here's why you exist, how do we come together? I tried to get them to let my niece and nephew into the school and everything. So
I think we've got someone here who can help you with that tonight, as a matter of fact.
I'm like, this is exciting. Can I get my niece and nephews in here? So I think it's meeting, those are the things that I think we can immediately work on that lend itself to the conditions that allow for hate, that lend itself to the conditions that allow for misunderstanding and mischaracterization. When people are suffering, they tend to operate in spaces or in silos, and we don't want that. And we can address those things with some of the programming that we can do together.
I agree. I tend to run a little faster, and so I agree with everything that she said, and that we need to make sure that everyone is full before we go forward. But I think that between both communities right now, there's a real lack of education about what each community is facing right now. Yeah. And I think that we have walked together for so many decades that we think we know each other.
That's right.
And it's kind of like a marriage that's fallen out of step. And anti-Semitism is at an all-time high. Racism is off the charts. In addition to food insecurities and non-equal opportunities. I mean, at the end of it, we want what's best for our families, right? When I tuck my daughter in at night, I want her to be safe and secure in the world, just like you do with your nieces and nephews. And that's important. But to say that we can run into this blissful utopia where we're helping each other with all these insecurities, there's some re-education that needs to happen. And we're doing that together. And I think that hopefully this dialogue will further that.
I love that. That's a good segue for my next question. My son is a graduate of Peace Birmingham. He participated in that years ago. They celebrated their 25th anniversary. But Peace, for those who don't know, who are watching online, I hope everybody in the room knows about Peace, but Peace is an acronym for People Engaged in a Cultural Exchange. Both BCRI and the BJF do a lot to bring young people together, right? And teach them history. In what ways would you say the adults in the room, those who have lived this history, have taken that exchange for granted? That's a tough question, but I'm a journalist. I get to ask those, and they told me to ask tough questions.
So can I start on this?
Please.
So I think, and I'm going to go back a generation past who's in the room too, because I think I want to start a little further back. It wasn't until really after World War II that Jews were even looked on as white, and I think that there was that relationship that was built that lent itself into the struggles of civil rights that propelled us through the 60s. And I think that is something, those shared experiences that the generations before us had enabled, I think, tighter connections. And we are at a point right now where, listen, everyone's living on their phone. Everyone's living through social media. The shared experience that you're getting is either on Facebook or Instagram. It isn't out in the streets. It isn't having a dialogue. And I think that there is so much more that we share and continue to share that is just not being unearthed or talked about, because we're in a 30-second what gotcha world right now.
I was going to say, Danny, and it may not be true what you're seeing.
Exactly.
Exactly. So right. So one person's fact is another person's fiction.
Right.
But I think about my great grandparents who were first generation off the boat here in America, and we're facing the same obstacles as the Black community was in the 20s as well. It was just that shared experience of both fighting to get your way up in the world and having your brothers and sisters to rely on. Louis Armstrong lived with a Jewish family in New Orleans. That was just, the relationship was there. And I think we've lost some of those shared experiences. And again, I think that's why we're here today, is to figure out what experiences we can share together that aren't on our mobile devices, that aren't on the televisions, that bring us together on a night like tonight.
So it's hard for me, I think, to navigate the question of what has been missed, because I think that requires me to know what was completely there in the hearts of people before, right? What I know is that we've been intentional with our legacy program, just like they've been intentional with the peace program, to teach each other's history. That is something that our institutions have been intentional about. There was intentionality around the kinds of programs and exhibits that we did together to tell each other stories. I haven't seen as much of that as we saw over the last several years. Now, this year, we've seen some things, and we're excited about how we've been able to move forward. We've planted some trees, we've done some things to reimagine what that can look like, and we have ideas about how to move forward. In fact, we were about to do something, and then COVID stopped all of us from doing some collaborative conversations around bringing in some tables and things around the feast and the holidays. And so I think that for me, it is about being intentional about the spaces that we currently have and bringing people into that space and having there be an intentional narration of each other's culture and experiences in everything that we do, that it's not an afterthought, right? We know that we can do this. We just celebrated Hispanic Culture Month a month ago, where we had 25 organizations led by one of our people here brought in, but we didn't start in the middle of Hispanic Awareness Month. We started those conversations months in advance and talked about what was going on in those communities. How do we have intersectionality? What are the kinds of things we can do to move forward? And then we launched a series of things that have been impactful and will continue to be impactful. That's what we've got to do here, and that's what we're doing here.
If I just interject one more time, I also think that this current generation is lacking some courage and comfort all at the same time.
Well,
I don't know about courage, but maybe.
Listen, we talked about, the aftermath of George Floyd and what was going on here in Birmingham and the rioting that had gone on downtown. And the Jews weren't even sure that we were welcome down to help restore the community. And that is as much on us as it is on we're going to own it. But there's not, the intentionality of the relationship has been avoided for such a long time that we just need to step up and get back to it.
So it's interesting that you say that, because for young people of different cultures, it wasn't a question.
Right.
Yeah.
They got out there.
Yeah.
So I wonder for us in this space of reimagining what that exchange looks like, where we learn about each other, should it be more of a family thing? My niece and nephew are graduates of the Legacy program.
Yeah.
Just to say, but should families be doing these exchanges?
Absolutely. I think it's a combination of a couple of things. I'm benefit of growing up in a home where I was taught at home how to treat people in the community, no matter what background they came from. That was something I learned at home. But if in fact I did not get that at home, when I went to school, when I went to church, when I went to get my hair done, it was all still the same message of we are all in this together, right? And so I think that there's a couple of things that I hear what Danny says, that is validators are important, right? It's one thing for me to go and say, here's what you ought to be doing. It's another thing for somebody that's within your own community that you trust their voice, that you trust their experience, to say, let's learn together and let's lead together and let's be uncomfortable together as we learn. We have to do that on both sides. And then the courage is our leadership being intentional about saying, we're comfortable with being uncomfortable together. And we're comfortable of figuring out what the next steps are together. And so I think it requires, I tell people all the time, I didn't get to just walk to church. I got drugged to church. And so every single day of my life, my dad's a pastor. And when I was younger, I didn't really understand, all of the intentionality around just being in certain spaces. But now I understand that I was learning about how to build community. I was learning different things. So the proximity to the messaging, the proximity to learning how to lead and how to share responsibility. I think that that's something that, because my dad was very adamant, but also my community and voices that I trusted were challenging me to challenge my own ideas. I think that's where we are.
So that gets me to a spot, and this was something that, I wanted to bring up because I do think it brings us to this point in discussion about estrangement between these two groups. In some ways, it's another reason why we're here tonight, but not the reason we're here tonight. But there was this breakdown, if not in the relationship between the Black and Jewish community, there certainly was a breakdown in communication. We will agree, right? Yes. A fallout over, of all things, the Fred Shuttlesworth Humanitarian Award recipient in 2019, a daughter of Birmingham, Dr. Angela Davis. Of course, it predates both you all's current roles. But I wonder from both of you what you would say as leaders now of these organizations, what was learned from that situation with this inherited thing you both got?
We were both like, I hope.
Right. I kind of want to hold your hand right now.
It's like, we're going to navigate through this together.
So, again, new, not from here.
Still trying to raise budgets.
Got here in the middle of COVID. Just want to point that out.
But as I said, timing is everything.
Listen. Communication. DeJuana and I are thankfully at a point right now that if something were to upset me, I would pick up the phone and call her. Yeah. And I think that is worth the lesson, right? The almost worth the trials and tribulations that we have two new people here that trust each other, yeah, that value each other's opinion, and are able to pick up the phone and call. And social media is a mess, and issuing statements is a mess, and love the media, but sometimes the media is a mess. And so
not you,
not you. We love you. But
she 5 times with it.
Right. But communication is key to everything, and that's about all I can say about it. Is and I think that's where I'm going to leave it.
Yeah, I think the lesson learned is that I keep going back to our missions. And I think that there was maybe a missed opportunity to realign mission at the moment it was most needed. And so if we don't miss the opportunities to continue to go back to mission, that will keep us in the place that we are right now. We know that our missions are aligned. We know that our values are aligned. We know that our ultimate goal is to be there for each other and to lead with righteousness. And so not that those before us did not know that, but each person and each group has to deal with the moments of their day. So the moment of our day is we're able to learn from whatever happened, because quite frankly, half of the time we try to raise money, we try to do stuff. Right. So we don't even have time to think about that. What we have time to do though is be intentional about what we want to see moving forward. And I think that moment allowed for this moment. And that's the lesson that we're taking.
And if I can, just listen, we all have siblings. Yeah. Majority of us have siblings. I have a brother, and I love my brother, right? Love him. Certain things about him I don't like, but I love him, right? And I think that we have to remember that sometimes even your family is going to do something that you may not agree with, but it doesn't make them any less than or deserving any less of your love or compassion or friendship. It's just a choice that they have made. And so, I think we have to start treating each other more like family.
There was a time, this idea of leading with love in our communities, it's what drove, you made that point in the video about Dr. King, the only way to drive out hate is with love. Yeah. And so the stakes today, when we look at where we are, in our society. You alluded to this, Danny, the anti-Semitism that's going on, the racism, the anti-Black racism specifically in this country. We've got trials going on right now in Charlottesville, Virginia. We have the Kyle Rittenhouse, and by the way, they didn't reach a verdict today. That is, they'll go into another day on that. But what is happening in the courts and what people are seeing, I feel like the stakes are so high. And so I wonder, for you guys, what do you see those stakes being right now when we, my mother would say, you're worrying about the wrong thing. What is the right thing? What should we be focused on when we talk about those stakes surrounding hate of these groups of people?
You know, did you
No,
sound like you was ready.
No, I was just taking a side.
Okay. So. Listen, we wanted this to be as authentic as possible.
Right.
So we both like, whoo, okay, that was good.
That was a heavy question.
And one of the things that I appreciate about our relationship is that we are committed to being and allowing each other to be as sort of honest and vulnerable as possible. And I think that's hard to do sometimes with leaders in general, but even more so. And so I will be vulnerable right now to say that in many of my hats, one of the reasons why my phone is right here is because I am a part of an organization that is working directly alongside of Julius Jones' family in Oklahoma. If you don't know the story, it's an African-American male who is scheduled to be executed in 2 days for a crime he did not commit. And people all over the country and all over the world are asking the governor to stay his execution. And so when you ask me, you know, what are the things, the ills, the moments right now, a lot of it for me lends to a change in policy. Because I think a lot of the policies that we are being governed by, not only in the state of Alabama, but all over the country and the world, reflect an ideal or ideals of people who don't exist in this moment, who didn't exist in this moment, who didn't necessarily have a commitment to justice for all. And so there are opportunities for us to reimagine our policies and legislation, both locally and nationally. There's opportunities for us to have, you know, one of the things, you know, when we talk about education, it's not necessarily just if everybody's going to get a certain quality of education. It's what they're being taught about, whose history is being erased through. You can have a conversation about critical race theory on either side, on anybody's side, but the point of the matter is there's an erasure that's happening when you don't tell all the sides. And so there's that conversation around what I think we need to be careful about. And then there's also the conversation about what do we see as a collective consciousness moving forward? Because what I'm afraid of is that we are somewhat collective on our current experience and our pain. But if we don't have real conversations about how to move forward in the country and the world that we want to see moving forward, we could find ourselves at this same place 5, 10, or 15 years ago because we didn't take the time to be intentional around how we want to build together and what we're building right now. And so I think that's the work. Is to be intentional about how do we see ourselves having a collective consciousness, having policy and true education that allows us to see each other. Those are the things that I would want us to be focused on right now, and some joy. I mean, just be honest, you know, it's a lot going on. Sometimes I can't sleep, you know, and I know he feels the same way. Because we represent communities that are impacted by so much. And we have to come out here and lead from a place of honesty, but also from a place of sincerity. And I think that weighs on us. And so for me, we need some joy. And joy is intentional. And that's what we can also do together.
I agree on the joy. I agree with everything you said. Obviously, I've got a policy person here next to me who can really affect change with all the work that she is doing. I want to go down a little deeper because I think before you can even get policy put together, you have to have, again, going back to the dialogues, and you have to have action and grassroots movements in your local community. There was a, sorry about that, it was really loud. There was, I'm going to screw up this quote as I wrote it down, and now it's somewhere in my pocket that I can't find. The Rabbi Grafman, very famous rabbi here, said, "Those of you who keep talking about what ought to be done, what have you done?" And as I was preparing for this, I kept reading this quote because I'm not sure that we are clear on what ought to be done anymore. And policy is an excellent way to get things accomplished, but I think having the stakes of not having the dialogues about what ought to be done for each other is paramount to getting anything really done. And then I think we also have to remember that people who were our friends aren't necessarily our friends anymore. We cannot count on shared histories and shared dialogues, and just because it's the way that it was. And so for me, DeJuana's going to lead national. She's probably the president one day. I'm going to go local and a little more emotional, but that's me. I'm emotional. So we really need to get back down into knowing just civility.
Yeah. Who the neighbor is,
Well, because this is last Friday, I was in Inslee in the downtown area where there's a new store. Young man opened a business in the old Cottons building.
Yeah.
You guys, everybody knows Cottons, right? And I've been in Birmingham 24 years. Even I know about Cottons. But the practical day-to-day part about interacting with each other, supporting each other's businesses, supporting, because that's where you get an opportunity to learn about each other. So we wanted to talk about some of those fundamental things that we can do going forward from this moment, those practical things. But I think for people who are listening, what are practical things? Supporting businesses is like one of those things.
Absolutely.
But what are some others?
Walking across the street and saying, "Hi, my name's Danny Cohn. Nice to meet you." Right? We are in a room here tonight, and I would venture to say maybe 60% of you don't know each other. Maybe I'm wrong. Maybe it's a little higher. But everyone tonight should leave here with at least 3 new friends. I mean, shake someone's hand or fist bump or something. But I just find I'm a curious person. I see DeJuana in the airport. I may come up and say hello to her, and she may think I'm crazy. But it is forming those connections on just walking out the door. And businesses are great, but saying hello and getting to know your neighbors and inviting people into your home. There was at one point a group here through Sisters Chaverim that was a gathering of Black and Jewish women that would meet in people's homes and share dinners. That doesn't exist anymore. And so really just let's be friends. And I know that sounds so Marlo Thomas, free to be you and me, simple. But I was raised on Marlo Thomas, and that's let's just be friends.
The idea of community gardens and different things, having a place where you can start from something you share, right? Whether it is I have a love of shoes. Me and my sister here, we started the whole night talking about shoes, okay? And we go love each other about these shoes for the rest of our lives, right? But it was starting with something. And you have to be willing and intentional. I don't live in Woodlawn, but I go to the Woodlawn Arts, program on first Saturdays, because it is me being intentional about going into another neighborhood, finding out about the crafts and all the different things. It's something I'm being intentional about doing. And I think our job is to create enough opportunities for people to do that.
And we've talked about
that. Having dinners, house parties is what we call them in our neighborhood.
I can't wait till that starts.
Right. Now the house party might be in here, but those are, so to make it a little bit simpler, right? Is so that just in case they're not quite ready to go knock on the door, because they don't know who go answer. But
we'll
always answer our doors. Yes. But the idea is for us to start with some shared opportunities, maybe do some small business networking, maybe do some things so that people can see us play it out first and lead on it, and then take some examples and do it in their own way.
And getting active in things that are culturally significant.
Yeah.
So for us being active in Juneteenth and having the Black community into our homes for the Jewish New Year, like there are things that are just so simple that exist here that are just not being taken advantage of. But we're scheming away trying to make sure that
I love that you're both very intentional. And I think those things help people on the outside looking in, because you can have awkward moments with people where your intentions are good,
but your execution
but then you get there and you're like,
right.
So I do think there is benefit in that. And that's something that I like about what you're doing today with this conversation. When you talk about fundamental ways that you can collaborate together, I want to throw that out to you all on the macro part of that collaboration.
Can I also say two things? You have to have some grace too, because we're not always going to get it right. And I think that if you are automatically, and by you, I mean any of us, are already at a place of where you're looking for the infraction, or you're expecting it to be attention there, then you're probably going to receive that because you're probably emitting it. You know what I mean? And so I always tell folks, in one of my trainings, I was, Harry Belafonte and some others grew up under their mentorship. And one of the things he would say always is assume best intentions first. Assume best intentions first. And that's what we've done. And I think that allows you to also have a layer of grace, but it also allows you to you have to remind yourself that there is still, though, an experience that someone has had.
Yes.
That is sort of framing why they might not necessarily lead with, courage. And so give space for that there might have been an experience. And hopefully, if you're giving grace and they're giving grace and you're both giving space for what could be, then you're approaching it from a standpoint of, we may not get it all right first, but we can get there. And I think that giving grace is really important in doing this work. You have to be willing to let people learn and lead, at the same time.
He agrees with that.
Yes. Grace.
Just a little grace.
Listen, I often find myself not extending grace as often as I should. And so I think that's it's even harder when you're a leader.
Yeah.
And you, as DeJuana had said from the beginning, you're carrying a certain weight of a community that may not want you to be graceful. Right? But there are some instances where I think that members of both of our communities would say, grace was not warranted in this situation. But guess what? It is always. And so I think that is a key lesson that we can take away from this.
That I would say is courageous when you talk about leading from a place of love, that it's the example you set when people do encounter moments individually where they may not want to show that grace, but there's been an example set that I have to, because the benefit to the entire community from this opportunity to show grace and the power of showing it. I always think that, I chose to be this way.
Right.
And you feel better about it. So I like that life lesson. Sidebar for me. So macro collaboration. That was the question. They got away.
We all on our, listen, we on our own.
We're media trained to go where we want to go with this, right?
Macro collaboration. The reality is that it took, and I mean, hopefully I'm not telling all our business, but
are there secrets?
Right. But the reality is we don't have all the answers right now. This is a start. It's a beginning for us. It's not a start and beginning for our communities and our organizations, but it's a start and beginning for me and Danny. And what we've first wanted to be intentional about is creating space to get to know each other and how his leadership works, how my leadership works. What can we do? What can we not do? Because we got boards we got to be responsible to, and and communities that we're still in the process of imagining. And that's exciting.
It is.
And so while we know that we want to be intentional, we're already looking at calendars and shared exhibits and different things that we can do. For me, the answer right now is we are still determining what that looks like. And there's opportunity for both our teams and our communities to weigh in on what our shared, sort of moving forward looks like. And so I'm excited about that. The reality is, as we're blessed to be in the positions to make the things happen once we imagine them. And there's an intentionality around us wanting to do that. And I'm always going to use the word intention because I don't think anything happens if you're not intentional, right? And so I think that we know we want to do some things that allow us to revisit each other's history and sort of how our communities have been here in the city of Birmingham and a little bit beyond that. We know that we want to create some opportunities for our leaders to continue to connect, particularly with the youth. Because we see that there's a real good opportunity for our young folk to learn and to lead as well. And we know that we want to look at things that will last even beyond our leadership, because that's also important. What are we going to, I can't promise I'm gonna be at the BCRI as long as Miss Odessa. I just can't promise. But what I can promise is that anything that we do, particularly under my leadership, and I think I can speak for my brother here when I say we want whatever we do to last and to be able to have impact beyond our tenure. And so that's what I would say. Now, he might already know what we're doing. And I'm looking at him like, what we doing?
No.
Macro,
right, macro. So I think DeJuana brings up a very important piece of the macro conversation, and it's the communities that we represent. We are just two people up here on stage that happen to find each other in the middle of COVID to start a really wonderful, you're like the best thing that happened during COVID to me.
Thanks to Joyce.
Thanks to Joyce, yeah. Thanks to Joyce.
Thanks to Joyce and Gina, yes.
Both of them.
Gina from our team too.
Yes, but I think it's inappropriate for us to say on a macro level right now, because as she said, the dialogue is just starting. I also think that it's important to understand that we also, as leaders, come with our own host of baggage, right? We both have organizations that need to be led on a daily basis. We both have issues in our community that need to be dealt with. But on a macro level, the fact that we have made the time to say that there's even going to be a macro level right now is such an important step forward. I could sit up here and tell you that, I was going to hope, we'll have this ongoing speaker series and, Small Business Month with the Black and Jewish communities, but I don't know that that's what our communities want. And so, it's up for DeJuana and I now to go and start listening and listen very intently and come back to each other and say, this is what our communities want. Let's get it put together. Yeah.
And DeJuana, you said, I'm ready to roll up my sleeves. I'm ready to get to work. That was a part of the video because it's hard work. Yeah. Doing this and for people to be out tonight and to participate and to listen. I like that it shows that it's all of our responsibility as much as you guys are leading this and leading the effort and have brought us here for this conversation, which I think has been a good conversation. But it is on all of us to do our part wherever we are in the community. This will be, I'm going to be respectful of time. I was told we had just about 45 minutes. It's 10 till 8.
Right.
So what I would like to ask you all is for this group of people who've not given me any questions out here, but what is it you want from them to support this big mission, this courageous conversation, this idea of these communities coming together again? What is it you need from them to make that happen? From us. I'm with them.
Man.
Yes, you may, because I got all the questions.
I need you to bring it into your homes. I need you to talk about this with your children and your grandchildren and your neighbors and your friends and the people that you meet in the grocery store lines and even the people that you don't know. We have grand plans and we can sit up here and we've had a great conversation tonight, and it's wonderful to see so many friendlies in the audience. But for as many friendlies that we have here tonight, or as many unfriendlies that wait for us amongst those doors outside. And so we need for you to stand up, talk about it during your dinners, talk about it while you're out. And if you want to write a check, that's not a horrible thing either. But we're not here to that's all
Listen.
we're fundraising. Right? But really, stand up and talk about it, because I don't think the conversation's being had nearly enough. And I look around this room and I see people that have been impacted, not only from the last 10 years, but since the civil rights era began here. And there is so much conversation to be had. And I feel like as communities, we have compartmentalized it because of the issues as of late. And it's time to start unpacking. Yeah. And that's what we need from you. And a little support, a little guidance, some ideas on what you'd like to see from us. And I'm not gonna lie, a little bit of joy, yeah. Right?
Yes, I think a couple of things. So I have, I always think about our archives. One of our most important things that we have here are our oral histories. And it's one of the ways that we are able to, in first person, let people hear about different experiences that they are currently having or that they have had. And so we invite you first, if there is a story about your community, your family, you yourself that you think would make a wonderful addition to the stories that we have, we invite you to be a part of our oral history collection so that we can help tell your story and give it a platform. Your story for justice is our collective story for justice. So we offer that. We want to have that. We have some of you, I know that we have some members of the community who have done that, but we absolutely would love to have more. So that's an immediate, you could, if we weren't here so late tonight, I would say, let's go tonight and do some of those.
Let's do it.
We're definitely
stay all night.
I gotta go to bed. No, to say, so that's one thing. The second thing I think for me is to execute just a little bit of trust, right? We are navigating this space. And I think that you would not have Danny representing your organization and the BCRI would not have me representing it if there wasn't already some trust in our unique brands of leadership. But we know we're unique. So, and we know that we're a little bit outside of the box. But we hope that what we've been able to demonstrate so far with our leadership in both of our spaces and now here tonight is that we are leaders that you can trust and that you can at least align behind so that we can get some things accomplished. So operating with a little trust with us would be awesome. The third thing I would say is remembering that while we represent our institutes, we don't represent every member of our community. I am not here on this stage representing every Black person in America or in the world. I can't do that. I'm sorry. I'm doing a great job representing myself. And even I'm later, right? And so, but what our spaces do is tell and advocate for, number one, a collective shared history that our communities have had, particularly here in Birmingham, and we're able to share that and navigate through that and use that to think about next steps and opportunities. The other thing that we're able to do is to have sacred space to have the conversations about what's going on right now. And so I do want to say that while we may not always know or be able to communicate what our communities are thinking on every single thing, we are always open. Both Danny and I are always open to opening our spaces to have the conversations. And we need to do that more often so that we are not operating or moving forward, in the dark. Right. And so any conversations that we can have, any space that we have here at the Institute is open to you and open to our communities to support the furthering of our movement together.
I always ask people as a last question when I do interviews is there anything you'd like to add? To make sure you don't walk away with something that you really wanted to say. And I didn't get that question. I didn't give you the opportunity to say it. And so this is the blanket. Is there anything you'd like to add?
I think that there are many in our communities on both sides who may not have been prepared for the way this conversation went tonight and may have been expecting something different, perhaps more confrontational, more historic in nature, just different. I think that when you say the word courageous conversation, that means a lot. There's no way to kind of define it. And I want everyone to know that whether you hear it on stage or not, we are having these intentional conversations. It is not always best to air every piece of laundry or share the
about that,
or share the family or share the family gossip. But as I'm going to reiterate what DeJuana said about trust, just trust us to know that we are working very, very hard on behalf of both of the communities, and the leadership and the trust that has been put into us, we do not take lightly. And I just want to say thank you. Thank you for moderating, and thank you all for coming. It has been a delight to get to spend time with DeJuana. And just thank you.
Thank you. I echo Danny. I think, to me, and I think Sherri, when we were talking about, or initially talking about having this conversation, she said something to us like, well, if we don't answer certain questions, will it be courageous? And I said to her, the fact that we're here is courageous. The being together and saying we're owning how we're going to move forward, that's what's courageous. Wallowing in what may have happened, that's easy. Figuring out the work of now and moving forward, that's the courage. So I applaud you for being a part of this conversation, for standing with us as leaders in this moment. I'm excited about what's necessary. I want to thank both of our teams here, both at so many people, let's give them a hand. They came together to make this happen. We don't just do this by ourselves. No. So it requires something. Both of our boards have representation here tonight, and I think that's really important for those who can't see that, offline. But we have that representation here, and I think that and Sherri, thank you so much for navigating us through this moment. But I'm honored that we get to lead right now, and I'm excited for what's to come. Thank you.
Thank you both. I would just say in closing, again, my just delight and honor to be here and be a part of this conversation. I love this city, this community, the history, the people. But I love that this happens here. And for you to bring us together in this way, because I had a conversation with an elected person as I was coming here tonight about, this is exciting. And so it was thrown my way that it might be messy. And I said, no, that's not what this is about. What this is about is real conversation, because the stakes for all of us are high. Yeah. And for those of us who are on the side of humanity, we need to have dialogue. Yeah. Hate can't win. Right. And so that's why I'm happy to see you guys here tonight and happy to be a part of a conversation that leads to more conversation. So thank you. Thank all of you for listening. I mean, such a good audience.
Thank you.
And for those of you who are online as well, thank you for taking part.
Yes. I think we have final remarks.
Lisa Ingle is going to give remarks.
Take it away.
Wow, what a powerful conversation. You have shown how to lead with love, and you have shown us grace. And I know this is just the beginning tonight. I'm Lisa Ingle. I'm president of the Birmingham Jewish Federation, and I have the honor of closing this wonderful and fantastic program tonight. Our deepest appreciation to both Danny and DeJuana for participating in this courageous discussion tonight, for showing up together in honesty, in respect, and in openness, and for not only talking, but listening deeply to each other. In Pirkei Avot, part of the ethical teachings from our rabbinic Jewish tradition, it says, "Who is wise? One who learns from all people." Danny and DeJuana, tonight you have each learned from the other, and we have all learned from both of you. You have been wise and impactful teachers. Tonight's conversation would not have happened without our capable moderator, Sherri Jackson of CBS 42. Thank you, Sherri, for your skilled facilitation. I would also like to thank those of you who played a part in organizing this program. From the Birmingham Civil Rights Institute, Gina Malisham and Moya Morgan. Yes. And from the And from the Jewish Community Relations Council of the Birmingham Jewish Federation, Joyce Shevin.
Yes.
So this is not the end of the conversation, as you've told us tonight. There is still much listening and learning left to do. But I know we leave tonight with optimism and with hope for future programming, for future collaborations, and yes, for future friendships. Our dialogue together will bring strength not only to our individual communities, but really to the whole Birmingham area. And thanks to all of you who came tonight to the BCRI. Thanks to all of you who are live streaming tonight. It is each of us who will continue to move this important conversation forward. It is up to all of us to be part of this important work. So I hope that all of you and your families will stay safe and healthy, and I wish all of you a happy Thanksgiving.
Wonderful.